Good morning, YouTubers. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the workshop. And I think we're closing in on the home stretch of the Ovation Spalted Maple. Let me see if I can kind of give you a view here. I've got you handheld today for this little segment. And I'm not going to tell you that the guitar looks absolutely perfect where I spot filled and polished and everything around. I had some spots around here where I had to drip fill with some lacquer, and then I wet sanded and polished. But I'm not going to tell you that it's perfect. So if you got down and looked really close, you're going to be able to tell that I was in there and did a little bit of work. But I'm telling you, it looks really good, and just at a glance, and if you're not under the big bright shop lights, man, the thing looks great. I'm really pleased. Excuse me, I'm really pleased with how the finish turned out all around the bridge. Now, I'm going to bring you along here, and hopefully, as I told you, down in this, right about where my finger is, there are a couple of dents in the finish, and I'm going to try to show those to you here. I think you can see those in the light there. Can you, right here, so those two dents. And that's actually in the lacquer. It's not down to the top of the guitar. It's just in the finish. And I don't know if something ended up pushing up against there or what to cause those. Again, I've had the guitar for a little over 3 years, and so who knows? I mean, I've played it a lot, and it's been on stage a lot and carried around a lot, so it could have. So what I'm going to do with this little spot right here is I'm going to show you the process that I used in these areas around here. I didn't want to film all that because that was a really long, drawn-out process. So I'm going to speed you through this process, because once I drip fill, I'm going to drip fill some lacquer in here to build this area up, and then come back in. I've got an eraser. Let's see. Yep, an eraser. And once the lacquer dries, I'll take the eraser with grits of sandpaper, probably start at like 1,000 and go from 1,000 to 1,500 to 2,000 to 3,000 on the sandpaper, and then we'll follow that up with some rubbing compound, and then finally, wherever my little thing of polish is, I've got some polish here, and those are the steps that I did all along here. I drip filled, I sanded with the different layer or different grits of sandpaper, and then turned out really good, and polished it up, and it looks really nice. So the other thing I wanted to show you, because I mentioned it in the earlier video, is putting some lacquer in, and I just have clear lacquer here, putting it in a cup and letting it get thick. And again, I'm handheld, so hopefully I won't bounce you around too much, but I want to show you what I've got here. You can see, hopefully, how thick that is. Now, if I were to open up the lacquer itself, it's super thin. So this is going to help in being able to build up the surface of the lacquer, and what we want to end up with is kind of like a dome shape over these spots. And let me bring it back in. So I want to build the lacquer up higher, and then we'll sand it down flush and flatten it out with the rest of the guitar that's around here. So I'm going to try to do this. Oh, I apologize for the coughing there. I'm going to try to do this and keep you so you can see here, and you can see and I can see, and hopefully we'll be able to do this. So let me try to hold you right about here so you can see, and then I'm just going to dip into the lacquer here. I've got just a small paintbrush, and I've dipped into the lacquer here. And I'm not even touching the surface of the guitar with the brush. I'm just touching the surface of the guitar with the lacquer, and I'm going to pretty much just fill the entire area with the lacquer. a little further out probably than. All right, and that'll polish off there that little mess. Will be no problem. But let me bring you in here and kind of show you. So there's that area that was dented in, okay? And so what'll happen is that'll dry. It'll take several hours. So we'll pause the video. It'll take several hours to dry, and it'll actually, because it's not solidified at this point, it'll still slowly, but it'll fill in that area. It'll spread out where it needs to and fill in that gap there. And then I think that's all we'll need to do. Once it's dried really well, we'll be able to come back in and wet sand that and polish it, and you won't even be able to tell those two little dents were there. So I've got we've got the video to show the before, and we'll see how it looks after. So we are back. So thanks for following along again, trying to get this Ovation finished up. Let me bring you in, and I'm going to tilt this down into the light. You can see here how much this lacquer has settled down. We might even have to hit it again, but what I'm going to do really quickly here, I've got a piece of you can see that 1000 grit sandpaper, and I've got just an eraser, and I'm gonna wet sand. So I'm just gonna leave you there, and you can kind of follow along. And I don't know how much of this I'll time lapse or something, but just to kind of show you a little bit of this process, because it is a little bit time consuming, and I'll try give you glimpses here. And the idea is to keep the flat part, I don't know if you can see this here, but keep this flat part of the eraser here to keep the top of the guitar, the area where I've filled, to keep that flat. I'm still with the 1000 grit sandpaper here, and we may actually be okay without doing any more filling. I'm just kind of working the area, and I'm working a little more than I need because I don't want to put a dip in the finish if I can help it there. You can barely see, so you get that in the light there, that area, and we just need to get that little ring out of there. So I'm just going to keep sanding a little bit. It's not exciting TV, so I may time lapse some of this and just bring you back in when it's done. But once it's, and we're almost there, I mean, super close. Okay, so that's all the way through with the 3000, and you can kind of see the really fine scratches here. The dull area is what we're looking at. I've expanded the area some to see if I can zoom out just a tad here. You can see where the light is hitting the lacquer finish here, and then it gets dull here. So that's, I've expanded my area. You can see that. All right, so on to the next step, and I'm going to polish this up and kind of bring you along for the ride, and you'll see it's going to polish up really well. You can see where the light goes across here, and then it's dull and comes back out again. So this whole area is going to be the area that we're going to polish. And the first thing we're going to do, it's going to be in 2 steps. I'm going to use this. It's by Turtle Wax. It's just a rubbing compound. It's got an abrasive in it, but it's a finer abrasive than the sandpaper. So what it'll do, and I'm just going to use it with a damp. I've got just a towel here, so I'll just use it with the damp cloth and kind of spread some of it on there. And then now, since they're doing it by hand, it's just good old-fashioned elbow grease. And again, what we're trying to do here, I'm just supporting the top of the guitar with my other hand, but what we're trying to do here is get out, and I'm going in a circular motion, and I'm going to trying to get out all of those marks that are left in the finish from the subsequent sanding. So the 3000 grit paper, I'm just going to use my finger there and touch a little bit of water. But just trying to remove the marks from the sandpaper. And I'll do probably a couple of applications of this, and you probably will see already, even with that, if I bring the guitar back, you can see it's already, you're beginning to see some of the light reflect. I'm going to work a little more in this area right here. Sorry, hit the camera there on you. Apologize for that, bouncing you around. But I'm going to hit that area again, just a little bit, small amount of water here, and a little bit of the rubbing compound, and using a fair amount of pressure here. You know, not so much that I'm going to break the top of the guitar, of course, but just a fair amount of pressure. Again, a little bit of water, and I'm going to do one more application, I think, over the whole area here. With the rubbing compound. Again, in circular motions. And you can really feel it as you're doing it, the finish getting shinier, or slicker and slicker, I guess, which would equate to shinier and shinier, hopefully. All right. Now, getting rid of that residue from the rubbing compound. I'm going to just wet cloth a little bit and just wipe over it with some water, get rid of any of that residue from the rubbing compound. And then what you'll see here when I show you in the camera is it's beginning. You can see, or you can't see any more scratches. We're still not, see how that's shiny at the top of your screen there, and it gets duller and duller, but you can still see hints of the light coming through now where you couldn't before. So we're going to set that aside. So I'm looking at it here, and it looks to me like I'm not seeing any scratch marks. So that's a good thing from eyeballing it there. And now I'm going to move on, and I'm using polish, and what I'm using, it's made by a company, I'll just show it to you here, Hapich Semi-Chrome Polish. And it's just a polishing paste. It's got a mild abrasive in it, a very, very mild abrasive in it. And again, I'm just using a clean cloth. You've seen me polish frets before in other videos, and this is what I use for the polishing phase of when I'm doing frets. So it's just the same thing. It does not damage the lacquer finish of the guitar, and in fact, you're going to see almost immediate. Going to just put some of this in the area here that we need to buff out. And again, I'm just doing this by hand. If I have a buffer that hooks up to the drill, but in this case, such a small area that it's really not necessary to go through all of that. And we may have to hit this a couple of different times with the polish, but again, it's the same process. I put the polish on, and now I'm just going to rub in circular motion and with a fair amount of pressure. And at this point, I'm going beyond the area. I keep widening the area, and with the polish, it doesn't matter. I'm hitting it a little straighter around the edge, but then circular motions here. And again, a fair amount of pressure. Now I'll go to a clean spot on my rag, and we'll see how it looks. And if we need to hit it one more time, we can. If not, then we'll just go with it. So how are we doing? So there's the light on the area that we didn't do, come down. Yeah, and it kind of dulls up just a little bit there. So I'm going to hit this area one more time, but you can see that just is coming right up to a mirror finish there. And again, this is the process that I did all around the areas that I needed to touch up around the bridge area of the guitar. So I'm going to do another application, especially down in this area where we really saw the light kind of disappear. We want some consistency in the finish. So just apply again a good amount of the polish, fair amount of pressure again, circular motions. And I'm thinking this might be the last application that we need to do. But let's, again, clean area of the towel here. And to me, that looks pretty good. That looks really, really good. And then down here in this area where the dents were, that area is all cleaned up and all of that. Really nice. And the finish is all back. So I just thought I'd bring you in for that part of the process. All right, welcome back everyone. And I'm gonna take just a few minutes here and let me recap. I'm bringing back the Ovation. We're going to finish off this long series of videos on this project, and just to recap really quickly what I did on this. Remember this whole fiasco with the way this bridge was glued on here? Ended up having to tear this off and clean up because all they did was glued it with some epoxy, just drizzled a little bit of epoxy or something on there, stuck it right to the finish, put a couple of screws in here. What a horrible way to do something. But I showed you in the earlier videos, I carved all this out, got all the way down to the wood finish, glued this back on. This will never come off again. This top will break somewhere else before this bridge comes off again. That's just the nature of the type of the tight bond, the wood glue. So that'll be on here, and it'll be structurally sound. What I'm going to do is just play it a little bit for you. I did just some cleanup. I showed you I had to do some touch up on the finish, which kind of hold it up there. It looks really, really nice. The spalted maple finish. There was a dent down here that I really showed you and focused in on. Dent in the finish that we touched up with some lacquer, and I did that all around here. I had a few spots around the bridge when I took it off and was cleaning that all. I had to touch up and everything. So polished the frets, oiled all the wood. These they're not inlays, overlays, I guess, where these sound holes are and all of that. Polished the frets. If you remember early on, a couple of these tuners were loose, so I tightened the screws back here, tightened everything up front, checked the buttons and everything, so we're in good shape. Put some new strings on it, and I didn't do any upgrades. I told you my frustration level with this guitar was fairly high, so I was going to put one of the Tusk, if you go back to the Taylor video, the Tusk saddles, I was going to fit one of those for the Ovation, but I decided to just put it back together the way it was. I did do some adjustment with the string height and the action, and I did not need to adjust the truss rod. And again, it's got this bowl shape, this bowl on the back, so it's kind of unique to Ovation. I'm just not a fan of how they attach the bridges and all of that. So again, just going to play this a little bit for you, and I want to thank you for following along this entire series. And if you like the videos, again, I'd love for you to subscribe and follow along. I've got a lot more stuff coming as far as guitar work, and I'm also going to do some artwork. I do a lot of drawing and painting, and had some requests to do some of that stuff on the YouTube channel, so I think I'm going to delve in and do some of that as well. But let me just go ahead. I'm going to play this a little bit for you, and you'll see, you can judge for yourself how it sounds. Unplugged, it doesn't even compare to really any of the other guitars that I have. Where this really shines is when it's plugged in and I'm running it through my acoustic pedal and amp and all of that on stage, and it really does have a good sound that way. So, but let me play it for you, and you can judge for yourself what you think. Again, this is the Spalted Maple Ovation CE44, I think is the model number. Yep, CE44P in the Spalted Maple version. So here we go. I'm going to play a little bit for you. Play a little bit of some jazz chords, a little bit maybe. I've been running down the road trying to loosen my load. I got 7 women on my mind. More than one on me, 2 that wanna stone me. One says she's a friend of mine. Take it easy, take it easy. Don't let the sound of your own wheels drive you crazy. Lighten up while you still can. Don't even try to understand. Just find a place to make your stand. Take it easy. And there it is, the Ovation CE44P Spalted Maple, all back together, functional, all that kind of stuff. I may at some point again revisit this and do some of the upgrades and all that, but for now it's going to stay the way it is. Again, thanks for following along. Thumbs up if you like the video. Again, I can only play what I can play. I'm not the greatest guitar player on the planet, so played it well enough so you can hear it hopefully. And but give a thumbs up to the video and subscribe and all that kind of stuff, and I'll catch you again real soon. Thanks for watching.